Hello, God bless from Up Ministries. It's me, Dick Jr. I am coming to you today to read you Genesis chapter 22. Now, I prayed and I asked God to help me to speak with you today before I started this video. And I suggest that anytime you place yourself in God's Word that you pray also and that you ask Him for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, just like I do. He's going to give them to you, and that's His promise, not mine. And it's in this book in many places if you go looking for it. But the reason why He wants us to understand is because He wants us to understand what's in this book, which is His perfect plan of salvation through Jesus Christ, His Son. So everything we need to know from the creation to the last day about sin and salvation through God's Son, Jesus Christ, is contained in this book. Okay? So that being said, let's go ahead and get started here in Genesis chapter 22. Now it came about after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Take now your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and he split wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. So I'm just going to pause for a second here. If Abraham did everything, he was doing many things because he was being faithful. You see, he arose early, he saddled his donkey, he got 2 young men ready to take with him and his son, split wood for the offering, and then he went to the place. You see what I mean? There's a lot of preparation. Abraham is doing lots of things as we go through here, showing he's faithful. So as we go through, on the 3rd day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw the place from a distance. Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go over there, and we will worship and return to you. Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac, his son. Okay, I'm just going to pause right here for a second, and I want you to understand that Abraham took his only son for sacrifice, and then he laid the wood on his son to carry for his sacrifice. This is a very linear correlation to God and Jesus and the cross. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go on from here. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife, so the 2 of them walked on together. Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. So the 2 of them walked on together. And then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood and bound his son Isaac and laid him. Laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. So see this correlation here between God and Abraham, because God sent his only son as well. So, but the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not stretch out your hand against the lad, and do nothing to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham raised his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the place of his son. Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord Will Provide, as it is said to this day. In the mount of the Lord it will be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this thing, and have not withheld your son, your only son. Indeed, I will greatly bless you. I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your seed shall possess the gate of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. All the nations of the earth. Okay? So Abraham returned to his young men And they arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham lived at Beersheba. Now it came about after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah has borne children to your brothers Nahor, Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel, the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel, and Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Tebah, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Ma'akah. So that is all I have for Genesis chapter 22. Thanks for listening, and God bless.